Hey Matt, I'm on with Drew right now. We're talking about Jones Plantation and other stuff. Man, you got to interview him. It's pretty awesome. We're just taking a quick break.
Okay, quick, before we get started, I've got a big announcement. I've just launched my new Substack channel at drewtv.substack.com. That's drewtv.substack.com. I've been holding off on doing this for a while because I wanted to make sure that I could give subscribers more bang for their buck than the $8 and change they're going to spend a month. And here we are. With the subscription, you'll get access to paywall-only content, which are going to include private Zoom call live streams with former guests and friends of the show. We'll set those up kind of with like a theme, and then we'll just all get in there and see where it goes. You also get 10% off across the board on everything at all Drew TV websites, which now include jonesplantationfilm.com and the Barnum World Fourth Wall merch site, and more sites coming soon. You'll also have a community of like-minded people you can connect with. Very important. And I'll be periodically dropping bonuses and things for subscribers. Look, I'm never going to be financed by the Hollywood system, nor do I want to be. I made a decision several years ago to not be chained by that system, and I'm trying to build something outside of it. And so if you like what we're doing here, sign up. If you're watching this and you've already signed up, thank you. Okay. This episode was brought to you by Jones Plantation Film. If you haven't seen the indie cult classic Jones Plantation Film yet, go watch that film. It's available now at jonesplantationfilm.com. That's jonesplantationfilm.com and on most major platforms.
Bo Jones!
Lastly, my new film Barnum World is out, and per our Indiegogo campaign promise, it's available for free. So the best place to watch that would be at my Drew TV YouTube channel or my Drew TV Rumble channel.
Barnum statements only work if you can't recognize them. That's important.
Now, time to start this episode of Maverick and the Machine.
Insanity is what I call society. Don't tell me what to do, don't tell me how to be. I don't trust the government, I know they lie to me. They could like my body, yo, for my soul and mind to free.
In 30 years, what does this place look like? I think that America's breaking up in the 2030s. I don't think Israel exists anymore. It's just my prediction. What that looks like, I mean, would it be secession and great? I don't know. What do you think is going to happen here?
Well, clearly, the United States is breaking up. I mean, that's obvious. You know, you have to.
So you're with me. You're with me on that. You agree with me on that.
I've been saying it for years, and
Okay.
you know, and I've been saying it very clearly for years in writing, and you know, at first when I would say this, people would get like, "What are you, anti-American?" I'm like, that'd be like saying I'm pro-cancer. Let's say if I'm an oncologist and I say, "Hey, so and so has cancer," and you're like, "What are you, pro-cancer?" I'm like, "No, I'm saying you need to get it treated, or you're going to die." Right? That's
Exactly. I say this like you're speaking my language. So that's exactly what I say. People say, "Oh, we're not breaking up. You're not getting." I'm like, dude, you don't understand. You're occupied right now by a very evil entity. Okay, that's not. The country wasn't founded so we could have this massive federal government lording over you with a boot on your neck. That's not America. I'm American. That's the United States regime. That's not me. We're not. We didn't go to war and we didn't do this. They did that. I'm American. It's a completely different thing. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. And I get so much shit for that. And it's like, you don't understand what I'm actually saying and what I'm actually hoping for. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's like we're on a different frequency on the radio here. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I totally get it. And you know, Misako and I were talking, you know, it's funny when Doug Casey and Misako and I were watching your movie first time in Thailand, you know, we all had the same conclusion, was like, we're on the same wavelength with that guy. We didn't know you at that point, but now, you know, you got to go on his show, man, with the Doug Casey and Matt Smith.
Yeah,
but
I want to get him on.
I mean, we're like, man, if I could make a movie, it would be that one. You know, it's like, and I totally get it, right? I mean, it's extremely well done. And Jones Plantation.
Thank you.
And where is it going? It's clearly war. I mean, the whole Jones Plantation is about that, right? It's about the techniques and tactics they're using. I mean, you get it. You know the mechanics of how this machine works. And so, you know, so for you, it's obviously second nature, or you couldn't have made that film at all. But when it comes to most people, again, if you point out, like you said, the homosexual thing, or when I point out the music thing, or the drug
tranny thing,
always,
the trans thing.
Oh yeah. And when it comes down to the drugs, they get stuck on, or let's say Trump. I warned about Trump. You know, that guy, Newt Gingrich, called me up like, I don't know, 10 years ago, right? And I was at my office. At that time, my office was in Thailand, actually. And it was in Chiang Mai. And he calls me up and I'm like, how'd you get my number? Anyway, it was him. And so, and he was trying to get support for Trump, right? And I'm like, Trump, I'm not going to vote for any of those Clinton people. But I mean, seriously, Trump? I mean, don't you have somebody else? I mean, that guy's not even serious. This is like 10 years ago, right? You know, I'm talking with Newt Gingrich, right? And I guess he was scratching me off the list of supporters. And but, you know, at the end of the day, I'm like, I mean, we need a serious person. Obviously, listen, how did I spot Trump so clearly? It's easy. You can spot people that are very similar to you. Like when I watched your movie, I'm like, that guy gets it. We're on the same frequency. You know what I mean? Tune in Tokyo, got it, right? So, you know, but with Trump, he's my opposite. So you can spot your same and you can spot your opposite instantly. Trump is my opposite. He's like a photo negative of my behavior, right? So when I look at Trump, how is he so easy to predict? I just imagine what I would do and pick the opposite. And that's what he does. He's highly predictable. And look at it again, anything that I've written or said about Trump, I've lost so many readers and supporters. And I'm like, I don't care. Full steam ahead. I sleep at night, right? I don't sleep rich at night because I've created so many enemies, right? You know, it's like, you know, like Alex Jones, like had me on the show the other day, but wouldn't have me on the next day. You know, it's, I totally get it. I get it. But I sleep at night, and there are some people that do get it. And those people are the ones that we need to reach. But you can see yourself, you can see people that are very similar to you, whatever language they speak, by their behavior. And you can see your opposite. Trump is my absolute opposite. He is treasonous. He's a coward. And remember, cowards are natural traitors. Cowardice contains the germ of treason, right? And you'll never see a coward that is not a born traitor, because as soon as they get scared, they're going to sell you out. They're going to go to the, and that's why, by the way, a lot of these Anthro-Insula, which means the human islands, these cultures that live amid other cultures, you know, when some country gets invaded, and let's say there's another subculture that lives in there, and the invaders come in, let's say the Armenians in Turkey, right? So the Russians come in, and then the Armenians side with the Russians, and then the Turkish then genocide the Armenians. Now, I've been to Armenia. I've heard the Armenian side of the story quite a lot, and I've been to their genocide museum and in Armenia, in Yerevan, and all that, and I've heard their side many times in Glendale, California, and whatnot, where there's a lot of Armenians out there. I've been to Glendale.
I used to live right down the
times.
street from there. I used to hang out with those guys. I love those Armenians.
Yeah.
I used to go to,
I do too.
go
Armenians are
all the time.
awesome. I recommend
ahead,
it for vacation. I would go to Armenia tomorrow. I mean, and the Zionists are selling weapons to the Azeris to kill the Christian Armenians, by the way. And it's the Muslim Iranians who are defending the Christian Armenians from the Zionists. You can't make up this stuff. So the Zionists are actually supplying weapons to the Azeri Shia. The Azeris are Shia Muslims. But the Shia Muslim Iranians are defending the Christian Armenians from the Zionist supplied weapons to the other Shia. Again, it's, you know, on the ground. It's about routes and resources. It's about the.
What's no accident that the UFC had one of their fights recently in Azerbaijan, because the UFC is controlled by Zionists now. I don't know if you know that.
Look at that dope head, Joe Rogan, right? And so coincident, right? Maybe. And so the at the end of the day, well, anyway, I don't know where we're going with all that, but you can see that we're in a state of war, and it's only going to increase. I was talking about Anthro-Insula, how these human islands get genocided. Like, you'll have a subculture within a larger culture, a war happens, and then that subculture sides with the interloper, right? Now, if the interloper wins, the subculture may or may not survive. It depends on whether the new winner wants them to survive or not, right? But if they fail, then that subculture who sided with the invaders, they're going to get killed. I've seen this over and over and over in history, right? If you side with the invaders, At the end of the day, you're going to get genocided, right? So when I talk with Turkish, I spent, significant time in Turkey and up in Armenia, talking with both quite a lot. So I asked the Turkish, what happened with the Armenians? They're like, oh, this is what happened. The Armenians used to live here. They lived here for a long time. And then we got invaded, and they sided with the invaders, so we killed them, right? Now, the Armenians say, we were there, and then the Muslims killed us, right? I mean, that's the basis. You've heard the story, right? So I'm like, when you go to Poland. I lived in Poland for 2 years, right? And Poland is a place where there was a lot of the Jews, like Maliakovsky was from there. Netanyahu, Maliakovsky, right? So the Jews are constantly saying, "Oh, we got all these bad things happened to us in Poland." You ask the Polish people. Or next door in Lithuania, I went to the Holocaust Museum in Lithuania a few years ago, in the capital of Lithuania, there, Vilnius, and I went to that. And you ask the Lithuanians, or you ask the Polish, they're like, yeah, well the Jews came up here from Sephardic Jews or whatever from Spain or whatever centuries ago, and we all lived happily ever after until the Russians came or the Nazis came, depending on the case, and they sided with them, so we killed them, right? And so it's the same story over and over. It doesn't matter if it's Jews, it doesn't matter if it's Armenians. One side of the story is, hey, they killed us because they didn't like us, and the other side is like, no, you sided with the space aliens, right? And then we beat the space aliens, and then we killed you too, right? We don't want you here anymore because the last time this happened, you ended up being an infection, right? And so so there's two sides of this story, right? And now the United States is filled with these Anthro-Insula, human islands, these Anthro-Insula of Somalis and everybody else. They're not going to side with us. They're going to side with whoever comes in. They're going to side with the Chinese. They're going to side with whoever is in power, and they're going to side with them to destroy us, and then they'll be destroyed. That's how this works. You'll use the interloper to destroy the main structure, and then they destroy them too, right? Like what's happening in Israel right now. Like you mentioned that you thought Israel may not exist in the future, and like in the not too distant future. I've said that many, many times. Now it may or may not. If I were to bet, I would bet that it's not going to. I would bet that it's not going to survive. 20 years. That's pretty long window for Israel to survive at this rate, right? I mean, it could be. Something could happen in the next 20 months. I don't know. These things are highly unpredictable. But at the end of the day, they have so many enemies now, and they seem to be intentionally creating them. And they are fractured from within. Anthropologically, they're very divided within themselves. They're not a monolithic. They're not a bunch of Jews of one tribe or anything like that. They're different languages. They're different. They fight each other. You got different brands of Orthodox. You got all this different stuff.
I follow a thing on Twitter. The Torah Jews, they hate Israel. They're like anti-Zionist, like hardcore. Like this
I talk with them all the time,
Judaism.
man.
Oh yeah,
I get messages from them every day, and I'm telling you, those guys in the Zionists, they mix like hot and cold air. It's a tornado, right? And I mean, they hate each other, and they've hated each other since the beginning. And like, for instance, in World War II. Jews and Zionists were killing each other. And there were Jews that were Nazis, and there were Zionists that were Nazis, right? And keep in mind, obviously, some Zionists are Jews. Many Zionists in the United States, most seem to be Christians. That's an extremely safe bet. And in the United States, Zionist Christians, Scofield Bible and all that, that appears to be, I don't know what the ratio is, but it's something ridiculous, like maybe 10 to 1 or something, or 20 to 1. I don't even know. But it's some very much larger. That's what Charlie Kirk was there to do. He was there to herd and propagate and grow Christian Zionists. Judeo.
What an incredible psyop that is. That's such a Judeo-Christian values. How could you have Judeo-Christian? How can you have a religion where your Lord and Savior is Jesus Christ? There's a group of people that kill him, say he's rotting in a pit of feces for eternity. And somehow you have Judeo-Christian values. I mean, what an incredible psyop! That's a really incredible. That whole dispensationalism thing. I mean, it's such a great psyop.
Well, the Jones Plantation, man, your movie. It's like it's all about how you can just like, I'll come in and these are not the droids you're looking for. I mean, hey, you remember the guy, that scene in your movie where they're standing upstairs and he's like, "Can I put my face on the money?" And he's like, "Don't you have any sympathy for these idiots or something?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, like
Can I put my face on him? I wrote that line, by the way. I'm proud of that line because it was funny.
That's perfect, man. We replayed that. We're like, okay, stop, replay that thing.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what I mean? You need to have like a roll of, that's going to end up being a cult movie in and of itself. You're going to end up people running around like getting tattoos of it or something, you know? You got to not let that happen, but
I hope so. I hope so. No, let them do it. Let them do it. Get tattoos. Go ahead. Well, so we were talking about war. So you think there's going to be a hot war in America between the Americans and the placed migrant people, or like what's going to happen here?
There's quite a few structures. One is Mexicans, of course, with Reconquista, and the Raza as well, right? The race, and so there's a lot of There's that, and then there's the Chinese that are coming in strong across America, right? There's those, and also in Chinese and Indians in Canada are thick, right? And also Indians as well in America, right? I deal with Indians like every single day, actually. Just like I deal with Jews every day, I deal with Indians and Chinese every single day, right? I deal with people all over the world, and quite closely with some of them. And the Indians are just flooding in. Like Masako and I, we went up to, we flew from Bahamas. We were looking at the Chinese thing there. We went up to Canada. We went to Toronto, and at Toronto, at the airport, when you land, they have a welcome center for the Ukrainians in the airport. So we stayed up in this town called it's near Toronto. Anyway, there's a big Hindu temple there with a big giant Hanuman monkey statue out there, giant big. You can see it in the newspapers. It was freaking. It's like, I don't know. It's like 100 feet tall or something, maybe taller. It's big, man. And so we went inside that temple, and we're talking with them and that sort of thing. But just down the road from that Hindu temple with the giant Hanuman, you can find it in the news. If you'll see pictures of it, it's giant. It scared the locals when they put it up, the big giant, Hanuman monkey. And it is pretty scary if you don't know what you're looking at. And it's even more scary if you do know what you're looking at. But it's about power and conquest. But down the road from that is a Sikh temple. So we went down there as well. So now you got the Sikhs and the Hindus fighting each other in Canada, and the Sikhs and the Sikhs and the Hindus and the Chinese and Chinese fighting each other. And keep in mind, our wars that we were having in Europe, Europeans came to the Americas, and we just started fighting the same fights over here I'm in Thailand now, but we started fighting the same fights across the United or America that we were having in Europe, right? So you transplant your wars. You're going to end up with African wars in Canada. You're going to end up with African wars in Ireland, in United States. It's going to be Africans fighting each other for some war that they were having back in Somalia or Nigeria, right? It'll be like Igbo versus Hausa tribe or something, right? Or it'll be, it'll be Baluch people versus Pashtun and Hazar and that sort of thing. All these people I was out with in their countries, right? And they're going to, some fish don't mix well in the same aquarium. So they're filling our aquarium, and nobody has stopped them. Trump hasn't stopped them. Trump is totally down with it. Again, Trump, I think probably when you look at how bad he is actually my exact opposite on personality wise, right? So I can predict what he's going to do, and it's going to be straight up evil, right? I mean, because all I have to do is go, what would I do? And that means he's going to do genocide against Americans, right? And because he's going to do the opposite. And like he's, just joined up with Pfizer, and he's doing Trump RX apparently, right?
I posted on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so
Anthony Bourla's a great guy. Pfizer did a great job. Just a great job during the pandemic. I'm like, this guy Bourla, if we were a serious country, he would be publicly hung.
Yeah, but the Epsilons out there, the Epsilons are like, well, Fauci fooled Trump. Here we are in October of 2025.
Yeah.
Fauci fooled him. Well, who did you want, Biden? Do you want Biden or do you want, Trumpy Bear? Trumpy Bear is here to save us. Trumpy Bear, listen, Trumpy Bear said, here, rock-a-bye, baby. Here, stick your tongue out. Here's some poison, right? That's what happened with Trumpy Bear. You had millions of people jabbing their own children, right? You had people actually jabbing their children and putting it on Instagram, right? That's like Aztec child sacrifice, right? I mean, crap like that. That's like out of the movies. That's cult stuff severe, right? And so what do I think is going to happen? I mean, Trump is straight up he's Zionist, man. He's doing, and when he has fights with Netanyahu, it's over probably strategy. It's not over whether or not we should be doing it. It's probably about who's getting the most gold. I mean, look at Trump laying out the gold in the White House before
that's disgusting.
Netanyahu. Yeah, I mean,
that was some serious. That was just what's going on in this country, and they try to tell people that the inflation's 3%. Like we're retarded. Like I can't go to the grocery store and see meat's twice as expensive as it was a couple of years ago. You know,
what's the gold price today? 3,700. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
And he's putting gold statues in, and people still they can't see through it. It's a thing you talked about earlier, where and I think it's really important, where if you start getting religious about your beliefs, you're gonna end up in the wrong place. But I think there might be something to where people are literally just NPCs, and so when they're presented with new information, they can't change their mind. They're programmed NPCs. Could they get deprogrammed? I don't know, but we're not NPCs because we can be presented with new information, and sometimes it's painful. It was very painful for me to let go of the bullshit that I was told my whole life about how America was the freest freedom machine ever free. Yeah, it was like losing a girlfriend that I was in love with, but I did it because it was the truth. Yeah. And I think NPCs they can't change their opinion. They can't change their mind because they're programmed, and they get angry at you, and they get mad at you as if there's something in their programming just it malfunctions, and they can't change their mind. I don't know.
What's interesting though is that this isn't a bad thing. The anger actually is not totally bad. The anger is an indication they actually see it. They're resisting it. It's painful. It's because, they're angry at the pain. So that's actually can be a good sign if you can get through that anger, because the other, otherwise they're just like, "I'll just get out of here. You're a nutcase," right? They're not even angry with you. They're just like totally dismissive. But if they're angry, you actually hit the nerve. So if we can find a way to like, okay, we got anger. That's good. There's a life force in there that we need to, free that life force because we want them on our side, right? We want people seeing it for what it's worth.
You make a good point. Maybe the better way to define it is they hate me. There's a difference between anger and hating me. You know what I mean? Like I'm evil.
That's important.
Yeah, that's an important point.
Hate is a combination of two emotions, right? And I've studied this quite a lot in information war, because when you're like, I've gone into museums all over China and whatnot. I'm like, how do they make them hate Japanese or whatever? And how do you make somebody hate somebody? You need to combine two emotions. Those two emotions are fear and anger, right? Fear and anger. If you mix fear and anger, you'll get hatred, right? It's like mixing hydrogen and oxygen and you get water, right? 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen, and that's it. You got you some water, steam, right? Mm-hmm. And likewise with hatred. Now, you can get angry at somebody, but you're not disgusted with them. So you don't, and so your anger, calms down. And you're like, okay, we're still friends, but hey, don't do that again. It's like,
right.
Or you can get disgusted, like, I can't believe you just did that. But I'm not angry, and I'm just like, don't do that again. But when you intentionally combine anger, how do you create that? One of the ways to do that is to show your enemies doing atrocities. That's why atrocity porn is so powerful, because hatred, when you combine anger and disgust into hatred, that is your rocket fuel for war, right? When you want to do war, that's why atrocity porn is so effective. It creates hatred, right? So rape, killing children, killing babies. That's why you always see these photos of babies getting stabbed with bayonets and stuff, and so many different wars. It's the same image over and over and over, right? It's the bayonets and babies, right? It's things like
Israel
that.
Did it, not to cut you off, but Israel did the same thing with the babies in the ovens and the decapitated babies, which was all bullshit. For October 7th, it just happened recently. They did the same thing with Iraq with the babies in pulling the babies out of the incubators. The freaking, what was it, World War I, the Huns, and they were, killing babies with the bayonets. But yeah, go ahead. You're right.
That's it, because that makes people incredibly angry. You're like, you're killing kids, you're stabbing them with knives, I'll kill you. You know what I mean? Because that makes us hate him. That goes from, hey, he's probably a nice guy, to, wait, he just stabbed a baby, I'll kill him, right? It goes like from 0 to that instantly, right? And so that's why the information warriors, when you're getting ready to create a war. Like right now in China, I've been watching this for years. They're setting the information ground to do war with Japan, right? Clear, and the United States. It's less obvious than what they're doing with the United States. But with Japan, it's amazingly obvious when you go to the museums in China, right? If you go to the Nanjing Museum, it's all about hate, all about hate. And it's interesting, the psychological operations going on in that museum. When I went to Nanjing to that museum, it's a huge museum, right? And there was many dozens of buses of Chinese kids showing up. I was the only white guy there, right? And so there was all these buses, you know, with the teacher with the red flag and the teacher with the green flag and the white flag. So all these different students going through the museum. What's interesting is everything is perfectly lighted so that your phones can take perfect pictures. You're allowed to video, photo all you want. Everywhere you turn, 300,000, 300,000, 300,000, 300,000. Everywhere was 300,000 because they're saying that the Japanese killed and raped 300,000 Chinese in Nanjing. Everywhere. Every time you look anywhere, you will always, for hours. So we're going through the museum, and I'm like, at one point, this, you know, I knew I was there studying information war. So I knew what's going on. I'm like, wow, they're really creating anger and disgust here. Lots of it. Hypergolically, like hypergolic rocket fuel, right? But one of the other techniques that they were using is the museum was very big. When we were about halfway through, I'm like, man, I'm glad this museum's done. This is like getting tiring, you know? And the kids are getting grouchy around me. I don't speak Mandarin, but they were, you know, obviously getting grouchy. There's so many kids everywhere, you know? And so keep going through, and I'm 300,000, 300,000, 300,000. There's no water fountains here. Kids are thirsty, getting grouchy. Because when you want to imprint a feeling into somebody, you make them feel that, be thirsty, tired, irritable, and you keep showing the face of your enemy. And, you know, and you want them, like, you know, if you want to go on a date and you want to, you know, woo a woman that you want to marry, you want to get her a great meal and everything's perfect, everything smells good, you know what I mean? You want her to imprint on you all the good things, right? Well, if you want hatred, it's the opposite, right? You want to, those kids, by the time they ended that museum, they were very irritable. And it was all about Japanese 300,000, 300,000, 300,000. And they're running them through there on an industrial scale. And we've seen museums like this around the world where they running through kids from schools. They show up on buses. They go through the museum. You get your imprinting. And it's, you know, often it's these giant museums where they're very tired when it's over. So there's many aspects to it, right? And so, that's why I wrote a dispatch on this called The Hate Farm. It's called The Hate Farm, and the subtitle is something like China is planting a bitter harvest or something like that. I don't know, I published that like 10 years ago or something when I was in Nanjing. So, I mean, it's called The Hate Farm, right? So it's very important to watch when somebody's trying to create hatred, right? And it's interesting because Israel, the Zionists know this very well, how to create hatred, because they do it all the time. But they appear to be doing it to themselves. They know what they're doing. They know killing Charlie Kirk would make a lot of people hate him. They know bombing all these countries simultaneously would make them hate him. You see that report that some Israeli IDF officer was yelling inside, Pentagon, while some a thing was going on recently. I mean, just like it's hard to tell if it's just part of their firmware to make people hate them, or, because of the professional victim thing, but the Zionists seem to be causing the world to hate them. Maybe this is casus belli so that they'll have reason to use nuclear weapons. Like, I would not be surprised at all if Israel nuked the United States. And, of course, they're going to blame it on Iran. And then the United States will dutifully go ahead and nuke Iran, right? I mean, I would not doubt that at all. I would not doubt at all. There's nothing for anybody that will do those mass death jabs and all these other things. There's nothing off the table for those people. Nothing. Hey, Matt, I'm on with Drew right now. We're talking about Jones Plantation and other stuff. Man, you got to interview him. It's pretty awesome. We're just taking a quick break. This is for Matt Smith. Matt, he's awesome, man. I tell you what, that dude's smart.
Yeah, that's the guy. He's sending me a copy of Doug's new book.
I've only read the first chapter so far, but it was very well written.
I love the concept. I wish I had that book when I was a kid. Because
exactly.
I'm a product of, ethnically cleansed American broken home shit. And I don't know my dad. I knew him when I lost touch with him after I was 12, and it wasn't a good situation in the first place. So I didn't have any guidance at all when I was a kid. So if I had known somebody like that or seen that, it wasn't in the cards. It is what it is. But if I still hold out slim hope that I might get married and have another kid someday. I really want to have a son. That's the kind of thing that I want him to read. I wonder, is it just for young boys, the book? I mean, I guess I'll read it when he gets it, but when I get
I've only read the first chapter, but I mean, the premise is solid. I mean, it's about the problem that so many people have, especially young men have, is that they have been the subject. You want to actually make this part of the talk? This is important. Let's do it. So let's talk about that book. Yeah. Okay, let's do it.
Let's. How do we preface this? All right, we're back. We took a break, and we're going to talk now about Doug Casey's new book and why it's important.
Yeah, Doug Casey and Matt Smith. Again, Doug Casey is the one that introduced me to the Jones Plantation. He's a very famous speculator and just pretty much serious man of mystery. We spent Masako and I spent a month running around Thailand with him, and then we were down there in Argentina with him, staying with him actually. And he's a super smart guy, and he wrote this book with Matt Smith to help Matt's son Max Smith, to find his way in this world without going to university. Like who would want to go to Harvard today and rack up $60,000 a year in student debt, or however much it costs to go to that clown show, right? I mean, at this point, what good is a current degree? Like when you read the first chapter of Doug and Matt's book, it says, basically a university degree these days, it's only worth something for your first job, because after your first job, people are only asking you about your last job, right? They want to know what your last job was, not, so for your first job, you need a degree, but for your second job, they want to know what your last job was. You know what I mean? And anyway.
Well, the other thing is, not to cut you off, but the other thing is, you mentioned Harvard. I mean, you could maybe make an argument for Harvard just because of the cachet, but the majority of kids are going to like Florida State or something. And it's like, it's completely pointless. I mean, they've made it so easy to get loans, which is just a hedge fund scam. They've made the loan money. You can't file for bankruptcy, so you're enslaved to that debt for the rest of your life, and you're getting a degree that everybody else has. It's useless. It's unnecessary. You can learn everything you need to learn in the actual physical world. But go ahead. I cut you off.
Yeah. The reason Harvard came to mind was because somebody a few hours ago sent me something about some new professor or program at Harvard. It's the normal, idiocy LGBTQ crap, right?
Okay.
Anyway, that's why Harvard even came to my mind. I'm like, well, there you go again.
No, it's a good point though.
Yeah, exactly. So the book is about basically Max, who has a Substack, Max Smith, which is Matt's son. So here to say again, Doug Casey and Matt Smith wrote this book called The Preparation, right? And Max Smith, who is Matt's son, who's about 20 or 21 now, is actually going through this preparation, they call it. And basically, the first part of the preparation is he went through EMT training, right? So he's doing real stuff with real men and stuff, right? Like he's gone and sailed around the tip of South America and all firefighting, woodland firefighting, all kinds of stuff. So he's doing man stuff, right? And he's where you have to get dirty and you have to learn stuff. And if you make a mistake, guess what? You could die doing this, right? I mean, that's man stuff, right? And so that, you get this sense of seriousness and you're learning very important things and you're learning things you could never get in school, right? Going out to, see things. And so the preparation is about how to get this, spend a few years of your life going through preparation for the rest of your life, so that you've seen enough of different things so that you're not getting surprised by everything, right? That comes at you. You're not coming at something going, wow, I don't know how to get my way out of this. You know what I mean? Because since you've gone through the preparation, you're like, well, I never expected this to happen, but I remember when I was an EMT in that fire, I can get through this somehow. I don't know how, but I'll figure it out. You know what I mean? Basically, the positive attitude, the right skill set to get you on your right way to solve problems, right? And so, and without getting through without any student debt. You know, the reason I have no debt at all, I have zero student debt, no debt. I'd gotten out of the Army. I was in special forces and that sort of stuff. So I started going to school, right? And the next thing you know, I'm working for Michael Jackson, doing security for Michael Jackson in California, right? And so I was doing my calculus homework because I wanted to always be a physicist or an engineer, right? And actually, I wanted to be a physicist, but I thought I should go into engineering so I could do some other things related to physics. Anyway, so I'm sitting there doing. So I had some decent math skills. Let's put it that way. That's what I'm getting to. So I'm at Neverland, at Michael Jackson's crib, and I'm doing my calculus homework one night, and I'm like, you know what? If I take loans to go to Cal Poly and that sort of thing, how am I ever going to get out of this? I mean, I could do the math. I'm like, let me do it differently. Let me try some different variables here. I'm just like, how did all those engineers make so much money? Because things seem to have changed, right? There's no chance that these numbers just aren't adding up. So I was like, well, and you know what? I was born to be wild. So I went back overseas and I started a company in Poland, right? And I don't have any student debt now, right? So I went back over, I'd been a Green Beret before and spent 5 years in the Army and that sort of stuff. So my preparation was basically running around doing Green Beret stuff, right? And so that was actually more contained than what Max Smith is doing. He's just doing Call of the Wild. He'll probably be up in Alaska fishing for crabs or something soon. I don't know what he'll be doing. Maybe hunting bears or running beaver traps or something. But the thing is he's doing man stuff. And it's the sort of skill set. There's this other group, and it's in Texas. What's it called? Good Lord. Chuck Colton brought some of these kids down. Not kids, they're young men. He brought them down to Darien Gap. And it's called the... anyway, I'll think of it. It's this academy, and it takes young men, and some of the skills that you learn is EMT stuff, and you also learn how to pilot an aircraft, and you actually get a license. You learn how to scuba dive. That's what Max has done too, and you become scuba certified. You learn how to do water rescue. That's one of the things I think. Anyway, this what's this academy called? Anyway, so they actually teach them how to build a house, right? You have to make the plan. You have to make the budget. You have to make the foundation. You have to go buy the stuff, right? It's like, and you have to lay the foundation and build it. I mean, really, no kidding, build a house with plumbing and the electric and all this stuff, right? So in a small house, you're not building, some ranch or something, but the point is you're getting them to do man stuff where you actually have to do this, right? And so he brought some of those young men down to the Darien when we were doing something down there. They're all about, I don't know, late teens or 20, 21-ish. And they were serious young guys. I was like, wow, this is good material. I don't know. These guys, they were like, we were out at this village with Imbra Indians way out in the jungle. And this is the reason we're out there is because this is where the invasion's happening with, all these people from coming in through, just coming out of the jungle after a week or two in the jungle, right? And there's people coming out of there dying, right? So we're in this Imbra village, and the Doctors Without Morals had abandoned their post, so we just took over their doctor post, right? In this village called Bajo Chiquito. So it's called Bajo Chiquito. So we're in Bajo Chiquito, and we're in the Doctors Without Morals post. And, there's literally people dying of heat stroke, right? And Chuck Holton's carrying this girl. She looks like she's almost dead. So all we had was these young men that were going to this, what's the name of that academy? Anyway, it's in Texas. If I find it, I'm going to send you the link. And so I just started giving them orders like, you go find me a fan and get me some water and all this stuff. And then next thing you know, they're just all taking charge, man, these young men. It was perfect. That's the way it was the whole trip. These young men that had been, getting proper man training over in Texas, they show up down into the jungle. They're not a fish out of water. Okay, I've never been in this jungle before type stuff. They got over that in 5 minutes. You know what I mean? They adjusted to it. They adjusted to their new environment. When we had these people coming in that were really actually dying of heat stroke and that sort of thing, they jumped right on it, started helping, and then when it came time to leave the jungle, it was a very long boat ride out of the jungle and all that. They're fine, And so, this is the thing. And when you have young men who have proper men around them, alpha men, they're teaching them how to do man stuff where you can actually get hurt or killed too. You know, this is no joke. You might take some attrition in this sort of stuff, right? And but at the end of the day, they've gone through their rite of passage. I mean, the stuff that Max Smith is doing. He's a young man. He's going through the preparation. He can definitely get killed doing that stuff. No question about it. And you know what? And when he makes it through, he'll be a man, right? And he'll be useful to other men and teams or himself and a family, you know, that he'll be confident when he's got a wife he's got to take care of. You know what I'm saying? He'll be a man that she can trust, right? I mean, that's what we need. We need young men getting that sort of mentorship from actual men, not people that are talking about how, you know, dope is freedom and all that crap and watching idiots like Joe Rogan talk about LSD. You know what? We need men that know how to do man stuff.
Well, that's what when we talked about the tools that they use, the degeneracy, what you just talked about, the getting you high and drunk and all this stuff. This is another one of their major tools, is so-called education, where they've conned kids into believing that, first of all, it's an old-fashioned way to learn anyway now with the internet, but to go and sit in a classroom and listen to some bozo talk to you and tell you what you should think and get some degree that in a classroom where you have no hands-on experience. I mean, there's probably still some degrees that have some use to them, some of the farming degrees and stuff like that, but the engineering, but it's another tool of control where you have all these kids running around. Their minds have been, it's actually very deleterious, I think, going to university, not only financially, but spiritually and mentally, to have these people teaching you and telling you these things and creating this world around you that you think exists. It doesn't actually exist. It only exists in your mind. And then you create this terrible life for yourself. And it's a really powerful form of control. And that brings me back to, we were talking about before we went on break, was the Trump thing. And you were talking about, you know, control of people's minds through hate and fear. What is Trump's angle here? What is the Zionist angle here? Is it they're just short-term thinkers? Because it seems to me like, obviously they're invading us with this mass migration and population replacement. It seems like that seems to be the most powerful tool. What is the game here? Are they, because is it just the economy so fake and financialized that they have to have just replacement cheap labor because they can't actually pay an actual salary to people because they wouldn't be in business? Or is it they're just short-term thinkers? Or is it there's a long-term play here? They hate Christians. What is going on, in your opinion?
It's a multiplayer game. By the way, the name of that academy is called the Alert Academy. Alert Academy.
The Alert Academy. All right, I'll put the link in the show notes.
I don't know anybody there. The only thing I saw was the young men that they were still in the Alert Academy, but I was like, okay, these are studs. Whatever they're doing there is working. You know, do more of it. It's like, you know, proceed.
Shout out the Alert Academy. Yeah,
exactly. I don't even know who owns the thing or how they run it. But those young men were Johnny on the spot. But what's going on here on the big picture? What's going on the big picture is it's a multiplayer game. I mean, the Chinese have got their own game going. They want to rule the world. There's many globalists. It's not like the Chinese suddenly wanted to rule the world, but everybody else was innocent. I mean, there's a lot of people that have wanted to rule the world. You know, Catholics, Muslims, Jews. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, there's a lot of people want to rule the world. The British Empire, the Portuguese, the Spanish, long list, right? And everybody wants to rule the world. Here we are. So now there are some people that just want to burn the world down, like Joker. I mean, there's truth in that statement, right? They just, for whatever reason, and there's people that just want a big piece of the world or whatever, and so it's a multiplayer game. So it's not like it's one person or group that's running this. It's a jungle. It's a lot of people with a lot of different, like when you go to a war, if you go to let's say the Iraq war where I spent 2 years, and they'll say this war is about oil or whatever. Well, for some people it is. For other people it's about, and they want metals. And at the low level, at the epsilon level, it's about, whatever, but if you, at the higher levels, it's going to be about routes and resources. Oil, yes, but also about eventually going for Iran and taking charge of Strait of Hormuz. And eventually, if we had succeeded in Iraq and Afghanistan, you actually could have taken Iran. And maybe build up armies there. If you have strategic patience and you do it slow as smooth, right? Just slow, chill out, right? And really stop dropping bombs all over the place in a hurry, because it ends up not working, right? And but had we gone slow, we probably would still be in there building up armies. We probably actually would. Had we been very easy, right? But that's not what happened. We went in there like a bunch of crazy monkeys from the Wicked Witch or whatever, right? And the people, people showed up from all around the world to fight us. Now, there are different people that want different things, of course. Some people, contractors, just want to make money, right? And so some people want to watch the United States expend itself, right, for whatever reason, right? There's so many players doing so many different things. So, what's this war about? It depends on who you ask. It depends on which, faucet of the diamond you look in to see, what it's going to look like on the other side.
So is Trump just this is kind of what I think of him. He's just kind of a selfish boob kind of guy? That's
Trump to me is like I said, Trump is my actual opposite, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he's my, like, I can see his skeleton. You know what I mean? I can see right through that guy, right? It's like I've got an x-ray for him. I might pick anything I've written, which will be thousands of things. Just use AI and say, generalize what's Michael Yon said. Find something that Michael Yon said positive about Trump, right? And I'd say things like, well, it appears that he did a good job raising his family. You know what I mean? I would say things like that to show that I'm not completely insane by saying this guy's a traitor. You know what I'm saying? But he his family wears nice shoes. At the end of the day, Trump, to me, he's like a boy in a man's body. He never grew up, right? He's not been through an alert academy. He's not been through man stuff. He's always been the boy with the golden spoon, 24 karat, right? He's always been, everybody's been there at his beck and call. The poorest day of his life was, his money problems have been, he didn't have enough billions of dollars to do something. He's never had a $50 problem. He's never, when you're somebody that has a $50 problem or a $5 problem because you don't have money to put gas in the tank, so you're eating ramen noodles and that sort of stuff, or it's even worse, that's a more serious problem, like a medical problem you can't pay for, and somebody in your family may actually die because you don't have enough money, right? There's people like that right now all over the world, right? Trump's never seen that. What's his biggest stress, right? He didn't have enough billions of dollars. He's always been in the driver's seat. He's a boy. He's a boy in a man's body. He's the perfect stooge for more sophisticated players. Just because he's older doesn't mean he's more mature. He's just not. He's just an old boy. He's an old child, right? He's a child in a man's body. And when you look at how impetuous he is, how he just lacks, he'll just do anything. Like, he'll stomp his feet like a little boy. But now he's got generals that he can throw into battle, right? And that sort of thing. And so but he's a perfect stooge. And I think, obviously when they're raising people up and nurturing, he didn't just start from scratch. I mean, he's been inside that ecosystem since day one, right? He's not a self-made man. He was born rich. He was born amazingly rich. He's always been amazingly rich. And, and what did he do? He ran casinos and that sort of thing. So he knows how to defraud people, right? That's, the casinos are all about taking people in who have a gambling habit, just like the dope in the bars are about people that have other habits, and milking them dry. That's what it's about, right? And it's the bottom line. He's always been milking people like cattle, right? And so at the end of the day, that's what he is. That's his nature. He's a predator, right? And notice when he's running for president, he's like, nobody's ever been treated as badly as I have. I've been treated worse than anybody in the world. Professional victim, right? Yeah, flying around in a jet that says Trump on it. Gold all over the place. Yeah, get out of here with that professional victim stuff, right? He's a predator and he's a psychopath. That's my professional opinion. I'm not going to say amateur opinion. I'm good at this. I'm very good at it. I'm a lot better than a lot of those so-called experts that have gotten him wrong the entire time, right?
Wait, so you think he's a psychopath and not a sociopath? You actually think he's a psychopath?
He's as bad as it gets. He's doing the worst things that anybody could do. He's still standing beside the death jab. He is still standing beside the death jab after all these years. Fauci didn't fool him. Fauci is just another one of his little props. Where's my dope dolls here? And these dolls that we bought in the dope store. It says, "Take me home." It says, it has a price tag on it, right? I actually went into a dope store in Masako and I bought these dope dolls. He's a dope doll. You can listen when you're recruiting people. There's 4 main cheeses of recruitment, right? Mice, money, ideology, coercion, and ego. Mice. So when you're recruiting people, that's it. Money, ideology, coercion, and ego. That's the 4 main recruitment cheeses. You only need, his 2 cheeses are obvious. Money and ego. Money and ego. He's a money and ego guy. You don't need Epstein Island for that guy. It's just a matter of his price and his ego. People that really go for the ego, you can pay them partly in their ego. Like people that are, on the, if the one cheese they'll fall for is ego, you can actually pay them with their ego, right? And, or, in his case, it's money and ego, right? So he's easy. Corrupt people demand corruption. They want corruption because corruption plays into the way that they roll. If you're one of the richest people in the world or come from an ecosystem that is, and you're running the ship, right? You want corruption because corruption has a price, right? Whether it's coercion or whatever, but usually like with a guy like Trump, he's perfect. He's money and ego and he's a child, right? And so he's easy to, and look at him. He mocks, like when you look at your movie, The Jones Plantation, you look at the Jones Plantation, he's mocking them. He's mocking them. He and the Zionists in general mock their victims, right? Why do they mock them? And I sent something to Bannon the other day. You see, what's her name? Erica, the whatever she is, so-called wife of Kirk, right? And she's mocking people. She's clearly now, when I say that, people are going to say, "Oh, you're so terrible," and blah blah blah. The Epsilons will say that. The Epsilons will absolutely say that. They'll go, "Oh, because they're at such a sub level of this stuff. They think this is not a movie. They think it's all real. They think this is all actually legit. It's not legit. This is a major production. This is not, this is people that do things like 9/11 and October 7th and death jabs. This huge thing that's already killed probably tens of millions of people, at least 600,000 in Japan alone, dead, not injured. We don't even know what it's done to fertility rates, but dead, more than 600,000 in Japan, and they've got a much smaller population. Their population is like 1/3 of ours, right? And it's 600,000 in Japan, right? And in fact, Masako is running around here. One of her good friends is Dr. Yasufumi Murakami. He's the one that runs the studies in Japan on this stuff, right? We spend a lot of time with him, right? We're right in the middle of that stuff in Japan. We get to see it not from the newspapers, but from the people that are doing it. And what I'm getting to is, and they're still pushing the jab. They're still pushing it. Trump's still out there going, it's the best, it's safe and effective or whatever. Yeah, it's safe and effective. That's code talk for their guys. It's safe for us. We can kill all these idiots. And it's effective. It's killing all these idiots. And they, it's safe for us, though. It's not going to kill us. It's, it's just killing them. That's the safe part. We're not using nukes. We're not releasing water poisons into the water that may kill some of our people. One of the things that's very important, and no doubt some people watching this, I know some of the people that follow my work come from, very interesting backgrounds, right? And I've said to some of these people, some are actually billionaires and that sort of stuff. If you took the jab, if somebody told you to take the jab and you took it in the wild, if you're a king or a queen or a princess or whatever, and you took the jab and nobody told you not to, and you took it in the wild, like you had your doctor come over and give it to you, then there's no seat for you on their ark, right? That was an assassination attempt. They've already killed a lot of people, but they may have killed you too. You may get cancer and die this year, right? And from that jab, right? They may have already actually shot you with a lethal silver bullet, right? And you see these very wealthy people, very well-connected people dropping dead just like everybody else. They need to get it through their head They think they're in this club because they fly around on the jets together. But if nobody told them not to take it, they were also part of the target set, right? They were on the targetable list. If nobody said, hey, Jimmy, this is for the masses, not for you. We need you to help run this thing when it's over. Well, if he took it and didn't get warned, look at Scott Adams, for instance, Mr. Arrogant. I can brainwash anybody, Scott Adams, right? Well, Scott Adams was trying to coerce people to take it, making people feel stupid that did not take it, and he took it. And he's a doper. He would openly smoke, talk about his smoking dope, and he would act like he's smoking dope, acting crazy, like he's completely high or whatever. And no executive function, talking like he's the smartest guy in the world. And now he's got cancer, and he may be, dead soon, right? So, I mean, but again, he's always trying to act like he was in the N Club. I got my blue check mark and all this stuff, right? He's always acting like he's in the N Club. And I messaged him. He blocked me eventually. I messaged him. I'm like, listen, if they didn't tell you not to take it, you're a punk to them. They are, and they may have already killed him because he's got cancer apparently now, according to him, unless he's changed his tune.
He came out and his whole thing was, hey, you won, you were right, but there was no way to tell. That was his whole thing. Like, I didn't actually miss this. It's just you got lucky and you were right. And it's like, this shit was as plain as day. It was so obvious. I mean, I don't know. How much information do you need? And it's kind of a general thing. It's like it's a black pill, but it's like, I don't know at this point. I'm going to keep doing my thing. I got another film we want to make called Crazy Eddie, which is
Crazy Eddie.
Crazy Eddie, yes, in the works. It's going to be our generation's version of Dirty Harry, except for he's going to leave the police force. It's going to be a vigilante, but that's another story. But I don't know what's going to wake people up if they're not woken up by now. If they can't see, when you got Trump talking about how great the jab is, doing deals with Borla. I had a guy tweet me today, said that it's the system. He's moving the chess players around, but the system needs to remain the same. And I'm like, dude, the system works against you. I don't know what to tell you. I said, you keep believing in fantasies. I don't know what to tell you, but
if they think billionaire Trump is looking out for them. Seriously, I mean, at some point, we've got to move on. We've got to triage.
You can't.
Who can? Yeah, we got to.
That's right.
Got to move on. Sorry.
That's right.
Bye.
That's right. I can't waste any more time with you. I tried in 2020. Yeah. I argued with people till my face turned blue. I finally had a really good friend of mine. He's a very intelligent guy, and I still love the guy. But I had to just say, I got to cut you off. And then I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to do my work, do what I can, and I'm not going to sit there. I'm not beating my head against the wall anymore. I don't have time. Life's too short, and it's never going to work. It's not going to work anyway. I mean, I could show the guy over and over again. It's not going to work, so what's the point, right?
Yeah, prioritize.
Right. Well, so on that note, I won't keep you too much longer, but America's, like we both agree, we think America's going to break up. What that looks like, I don't know, but I think reality is going to assert itself here very soon. I mean, this thing is so insane at this point. It's just so insane what they're doing. What are some 3 or 4 or 5 good piece of advice you could give people who are awake, who are thinking, who are very worried? A lot of people can't leave the country and travel around. They got kids here. They don't want to leave. Like, what can Americans do? What can Westerners do right now to protect themselves from what's coming?
First and foremost is don't support anybody who pushed jabs. Don't send money or give any psychological or verbal support to people who are actually obviously not acting in our interest. I mean, seriously, and don't go on the epsilon and go, well, who did you want, Biden? Now, I get it. Trust me, I can do the math. But that doesn't mean that you then support the guy who's just killing you with a different weapon, right? Just because that guy Biden is shit on the street doesn't mean that other guy then is a hero. That doesn't, that equation doesn't work. And so first of all, we never support somebody who's actually killing us and against us, right? And remember, your fiat is sooner or later you're going to wake up and that fiat's not going to be there. It's very important to study brainwashing techniques. Very important. And like one great book on that is called Rape of the Mind by Just Merlo, 1956. I would read that one. Rape of the
I'm familiar
Mind by
with him.
Just Merlo. Yeah, and he's a Dutch psychologist. That's a very good book. Now, that's a book you need to turn off the music and read it quietly and study it, because you need to concentrate when you're reading it, and let it sink in, and then read the crowd. And so once the thing is once you're cognizant of what is the techniques that they're using, now you've got a little bit of defense against it, right? And actually, if Sun Tzu were alive, Masako and I were joking the other day, if Sun Tzu were alive, he might say, the acme of brainwashing is to know that you're being brainwashed and brainwash your brainwasher, right? Reverse it on him. It's like, because remember, your brainwasher can be brainwashed too. So, just because they're coming, it's like, somebody's trying to put you in a headlock, but you reverse it and you choke them out. You know what I mean? Seriously, don't always play defense. Like when you sense that somebody's doing it, don't just like, oh no, I'm getting beat up. It's like, no, just who's doing this? I'm going to brainwash them back, right? So practice it yourself and don't do it maliciously, obviously, right? Because remember, what's brainwashing? It's basically influence, right? And influence can be used like Trump uses it in a malignant way, right? He's a good influencer. He knows all the arts and artifices of influence, right? And he exercises them to the nth degree, but he reverses the polarity on them, right? The thing is all these techniques and tactics that are used to dissolve our countries, you could take the same exact techniques and tactics, just reverse the polarity, and it would make us stronger. Like instead of having dope stores and saying, well, what did you want? Alcohol instead? How about neither one, right? If you just reverse the polarity, you can make our families stronger. You can make our men stronger. You can make, and women need to demand strong men. Women are an important base of all this, right? That's a problem women have right now across America and across Japan and across here in Thailand. I've heard so many women complain that they can't find manly men. They want manly men. They do organically, deep down inside, they want a man that can smash a bear in the face, right? Deep down inside, they want a man that can fight, right? They want a man that will fight for them. They want a man who's a man, who has testosterone. All this other brainwashing is nonsense, because deep inside, that's what they want, right? Let me jump on that. Is that I've never in my life, and this is for the young men out there, I've never in my life had a problem getting a woman who was worth anything because I was too manly. Not once did that ever happen. You'll have a problem beating them off of you if you're too manly. That's right. The thing. Women organically want a strong man, right? That's just part of their nature. And we want a woman that can, part of our nature is we want a woman who can raise babies and be mama bear, right? And that's our nature, right? And so at the end of the day, the brainwashing that's taken place has been to split that and to atomize us, to make young people fight old people, to make white people and black people fight each other, different languages fight each other, right? To make, boys and girls fight each other and all this ridiculousness. Okay, we're back. Had another technical difficulty. Let me just kind of summate what we were talking about before we got so rudely interrupted. I asked you what people can do. You said basically don't trust somebody who is pushing that jabbo on you, which obviously that's what Trump is still doing, which means either he believes it works, which if he does, he's an idiot, or he is scamming you and putting your children's lives and you in danger, which means he's terrible. Or 3, he's just an egomaniac and can't admit he's wrong, which is none of those are good options. So, yeah, don't trust somebody that's pushing that on you, and anybody, not just him. The second thing you said is fiat currency. Be careful, because obviously when the empire falls, the fiat's going to fall with it. The third thing you talked about was watch out for mind control and brainwashing and propaganda tactics. And I want to just wrap that, do a little maybe self-promotion, but there's you brought up that Juiced, what's Juiced's name? The author, Juiced. Just Merlo, the author of Rape of the Mind. It's a 1956 book. It's really worth reading, Rape of the Mind.
Yeah, my second episode, I interviewed a guy named Jason Christoff, who's an expert in mind control and psychological warfare, and he recommended that same author. I would suggest also people go watch Barnum World, because
I'll watch it.
Yeah, it's a really good, propaganda 101. Actually, a little more depth to it, and it ties into what we've actually gone through here in this country, and at least in the West, and particularly America. But I look at Jones Plantation and Barnum World as sort of a diptych. And by the way, Barnum World, because of the promise we made on the crowdfunding campaign, it's free on YouTube, which I don't recommend, but there it is. So you can just go watch it anytime. But the diptych is the Jones Plantation kind of teaches people about how the infrastructure was formed in the enslavement system that we live in now. And Barnum World shows them the tips and the tricks and the tools that they use to keep that infrastructure going. And we have a guy comes in named Natty Jones. It's a mockumentary, but he plays a Hollywood producer / propagandist. And he just does a reveal and tells us the tips and tricks. And his whole thing is like, it's almost like Revelation of the Method. And he's like, I'm going to tell you about it. It's not going to matter to anybody. Nobody's going to do anything with the information anyway. He has like pretty cynical view of the human race, basically. And so I would suggest people take a look at that, Barnum World. But is there anything else you want to add to that list?
Well, obviously, like, for instance, Trump and whoever replaces him is not acting in our best interest. So that's a done deal. And pretty much anything that he pushes is suspect. For instance, Bitcoin, I think, is absolutely insane to invest in Bitcoin. But I know wealthy people, very wealthy people that are deep in it, and I think they're absolutely screwing up.
I'm one of them. I'm not wealthy, but I have Bitcoin, yeah.
I first got some in 2013. I have a little tiny bit now. Mm-hmm. So I'm cognizant of how it works and all that. I just used some last week, right? It is useful for some things, but I would not keep any substantial part of your wealth in that. I think it's going to blow up. I think it's quite obvious. And but let's see. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm wrong about the jabs because I think it's in the same category. I think it's gonna. So if you've got a substantial part of your wealth in it, I think you're gonna lose it. Ultimately, I don't know when it'll be. Obviously, it's gone up a huge amount since it was first out there. But let's see. That I've said my piece on that. But when it comes to we're in a state of war, and people need to behave like we're in a state of war, and when anybody that's intentionally trying to make confusion. Bring confusion into a situation, that's an enemy, right? So we need to be quick. People need to really practice their ability to quickly assess a situation and derive correct answers because your life depends on being correct, right? And that means you need to be brutal with your own decision-making cycle and practice predicting things about people and situations. And over time, and be very brutal with the things you do right and the things that you do wrong. And over time, you're going to get better. You'll get, no matter how good you are now, you'll get better. You'll get better if you practice actually prediction. But you don't have to do it publicly. Just do it privately. But write stuff down. Keep yourself honest, right? Like, so that you don't forget things about, and over time, I've become very good at predicting. Now, let me be clear about that. I can't predict things like if you ask me, what will the stock market do next week? I don't know. You know what I mean? I have no idea. And flip a coin. But so the predictions that I can do quite well are, after many years of practicing, are the ones that just kind of naturally well up in me, right? In other words, I look at the situation with Trump and that sort of thing, and I'm like, okay, that guy's a traitor, right? And but that welled up in me. Nobody forced me to make that prediction. Nobody puts me on the spot and says, well, what do you think of this? I'm like, I don't know. So it's the predictions that kind of naturally well up, and like, for instance, that the screwworms would make it to the back to and be a problem. That was just welled up. I'm like, I got cognizant of the screwworms and the situation. I'm like, those things will make it back to America. That's my prediction. Strong prediction. Nord Stream, same thing. Groningen, same thing. A lot of these things. Darien Gap, main invasion route, same thing, right? That Trump would end up getting in a second term and be worse than anybody ever imagined. I said it publicly so many times, even I can't remember, right? So those were natural predictions that welled up in me. And the main thing that you have to also be cognizant of is making sure that you not care what others think. Right? You know what I mean? It doesn't mean you need to be public about all your predictions, because that could get you killed, right? And but and that could get you thrown out of something. But you need to be honest with yourself, right? You need to be, so that you orient yourself in a proper direction to take what's coming, right? So even if you don't have to be public about it, you don't have to persuade anybody about it. Just try to orient yourself correctly as much as possible, and you're going to get good at it over time. Even if you're terrible at it today, you're going to quickly see you're getting better and better, and it's going to make a bigger and bigger difference as the energy in the system increases and as things get more and more intense. Your ability to gauge and measure people quickly is going to never be more important in the future. We're going to reach a point where your ability to judge people quickly is definitely a life and death skill. It always is, actually, but it's going to become more so than it ever has been, unless you've been a prisoner in something on death row. You know what I mean? So so here we go. We're going into what's obviously going to be an increased state. I think eventually we're going to have food problems. I've been saying that now for 5 years. I think the beast, let's call it, is setting conditions, and this is all about setting conditions. War. The people that do war very well are very good at setting conditions for success, or setting conditions for failure of their enemy as well. And so sometimes that takes many years. It's clear that conditions are being set to put us into famines. It hasn't happened yet. I think that the beast has found that we've turned out to be more resilient on food than was expected, but it's very clear that our resilience is decreasing, right? As on a global scale and on a national scale. And I can give you so many small instances that are part of the larger matrix of situation. For instance, water from the Rio Grande River, between Mexico and the United States. A lot of that water is being diverted to Mexico against our treaty, and it's being used to grow crops in Mexico. So a lot of our farmers are going out of business. The same is happening, there and other parts of the United States for different reasons. Same is happening in Netherlands and England and so many places. Japan. I mean, you go up to the farms in Japan, like Masako and I go up there. There's like bears running around. I'm like literally. I mean, bears coming into the towns now because so many farms are empty. There's like monkeys and deers and hogs out there. And these bears are dangerous, man. They're killing people in Japan. So, I mean, what I'm getting to is there's fewer and fewer farms and farmers in Japan. So the farms are becoming like, safari land. And we went to a bear hunter and spent a half a day with him, actually. He had a whole big old stack of bear skulls and 4 freezers of bear meat and deer meat and hog meat, that sort of stuff. What I'm getting to is we're clearly getting, and that includes here in Thailand, actually. The food resilience in Thailand is still good. It's still much better than most parts of the world, but it's clearly even here slowly being eroded. Prices are slowly going up, that sort of thing. But in some other countries, prices have gone up dramatically. So your ability to produce food is quite, important. And also your ability to defend yourself, because you are going to be 911. So your ability to communicate is very important. Your ability to communicate and so that everybody understands how to communicate, however you decide to do it, radios or whatever. In a lot of the places that I go to around the world, I'm out, with so many different cultures. There's a lot of like villages that I go to in different countries. They still use like bells to alert the village of things. Mm-hmm. Like down the Darien Gap, there's villages, they still clang metal when they call meetings and things like that. Different number of clangs would be an emergency. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of ways to communicate. So you need to think about that and take inventory of the skills of the people, the strengths and weaknesses of the people around you. Everybody listening to this has a lot of skills, and a lot of those skills you don't maybe normally think about because you're not really tapping into them. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, he's a retired Green Beret. At his church, he said, he basically made a spreadsheet of the skills of the people at his church, and there was one older lady, grandmother. And I think she was a great-grandmother, as I recall. And she was sad. She's like, I don't have any skills. And he's like, you raised all these children and grandchildren successfully. You obviously have skills. I mean, if you can raise children and grandchildren successfully, he said she had like a nice family. He's like, you have a lot of skills. Let's talk about what you just normally do, right? So she knows how to can food, right? And so, and she's like, she didn't even count that as a skill because it's just so normal. It'd be like counting, for her, it'd be like counting, tying your shoes as a skill set. But for most people, the ability to can food is a significant skill set that needs to be passed on. And that's what he said. He said, that's really important. And so please make a list of what you need, salt or jars or pressure cookers or whatever, vinegar, all the things that you need, right? Tell me what you need. And just make a list. I'll make it happen. You'll get the stuff. And then I'll bring over the young people and please teach them how to can. And your job is not to be the canner for them. Your job is to teach them how to can and then supervise it so that, pass the skills on. And so that's what he did. Just stuff like that. Like this grandmother's all sad, thinks she has no skills. And she's got one of the primary skills that are needed. The ability. And remember, anybody that's run a successful family with grandchildren and stuff, they're actually natural psychologists too. So they just like a built-in psychologist, But anyway, I think when he told me that story, he was quite satisfied because he said, she feels good now. She's got a reason to, not just to exist, but she knows her skill is important and everybody needs it.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, first of all, calling it the beast. We should have been doing that's a great one. We got to use that all the time now. What's the beast going to do? But you mentioned, prediction. I think you're really talking about is pattern because I'm not going to predict what the stock market's going to do. You're talking about pattern recognition and archetype recognition, which comes from life experience and also what you've done, which is an immense amount of studying, right?
It does. And a lot of study and being with a lot of different types of people. Good people, bad people, many different cultures, so many. And, I've spent most of my life outside of the United States in 99 countries, actually. So most of my life has been downrange in wars, quite a few years, Iraq, Afghanistan, out with the Maoists in Nepal, a lot of fighting here in Thailand, believe it or not, very lethal, actually. And so I've seen a lot of different things and situations. So it's helped me, to develop a skill set that's quite useful. Like, for instance, to see through Trump, it was like looking at him through an X-ray machine. Yeah. I can see any pins in his bones. I can see them. He doesn't have any because he never broke a bone.
Well, I mean, the beast for people. I mean, just for regular people, not to get or people that haven't thought about this much. I mean, the beast is not that hard to pattern recognize. I mean, once you can kind of see it, it's pretty obvious what it's doing. I mean, the COVID thing, once you could see through that, it was like, I know exactly where this is going, But don't
make excuses for him either. Don't make excuses for him. Never make excuses for, like, Fauci fooled him. If you're making it, you're setting yourself up to die if you're giving passes on all these different things, that low of a level of, he has to be a good guy. No, he doesn't. You got to get and really like an acid test. With your equal sign, all these factors equal what? A lot of people start with what's on the right side of the equal sign, the answer that they want, and then they design this math problem that equals the answer they want.
Right.
But I spend my time on this side of the equation trying to figure out what it equals, right? As opposed to what the answer has to be. You have to start with the left side of the equation and work your way to the right side of the equation. And the right side of the equation, when I looked at all those factors with Trump, I'm like, enemy. That guy's an enemy for sure. He's going to commit treason. He's a coward. He's got a very terrible, whole personality structure is actually quite. It made me. I wanted to mention it to you earlier. It's made me wonder many times if it was just that he was a product of this brainwashing since he was a child, right? In other words, he could have been raised up into this sense because this brainwashing has been going on since long before our great grandparents were born, right? So by the time you and I were born, we were born into a highly sophisticated, very mature brainwashing system.
Right.
It's not like it's recently matured.
Right.
It was mature before our parents met. You know what I mean? And so our parents and grandparents were actually born into this system. Actually, they were actually already born. So in other words, the people all around us in this jungle, they were actually part of it, whether they knew it or not. Some people, like G. Edward Griffin, you know, he's amazing man. I don't know if anybody's read A Creature from Jekyll Island, but that's an amazing book. You know, he messages me sometimes. That guy, he back, you know, in his old films that were in black and white, you know, he's still kicking strong. He's still fighting, man. I want to be like him. You know what I mean? Like fighting to the end, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, and he'll message me sometimes. He's on it. And look at what he was saying back in when it was black and white. It was like in the 50s or something, and he's still fighting. But his stuff that I said to him one time a couple months ago, I was like, you know what? I looked at your old stuff again, and if I want to know what's happening, I just look at your old videos and add drones. It's like basically, you know what I mean? All the stuff that's happening, like, and then they'll do all these different things, and then people will beg to put the army on the streets. And I mean, he was saying stuff like that, and now that's what's happening. You know, I see MAGA people now going, great, Trump's putting troops on the streets. I'm like, that's the guy who just pushed the jab, right? I mean, seriously. You know, he's not putting troops on the streets to deport people. We don't need that. We just need to deport them. We should have been deporting them. We should be deporting 1 million a month. You know what I mean? But we're not. It's just not happening. He's handing out visas, right? He's allowing more people. I mentioned to you earlier, I met with a guy he's Thai, but he became a U.S. citizen. So he's a Thai. I had dinner with him a few weeks ago, and he just left Houston. He's a Thai American, and he came back to Thailand because the Indian took his job. He said everybody in Texas is losing their software jobs. He's a software programmer. So he came back to Thailand looking for a software job because he said, you know, Indians are, you know, and Trump's the one bringing them in, right? So there you go. I mean, so they're literally destroying our resilience by taking our jobs away.
You know, it's the thing with when you're analyzing these so-called leaders like Trump, stop adding zeros to the problem. So like when we talk about film, when we talk about low budget and there's an issue, hey, my buddy Legal Man's always like, add 3 zeros to it. And is it an issue now? You know, because somebody wanted to, you know, take the song and do something, or, you know, somebody wanted to do something with it that had to do with the IP, and he's like, add 2 zeros, add 3 zeros to the budget. Now is it a problem? Oh yeah, now it's a real problem. But with these leaders, just pull the zeros off the problem and just put them into your life. And imagine them. They're not different. They shouldn't be. They're not living by different. They're living by different rules in some sense.
Actually, that's perfect. I love that. So if you take, let me repeat that to make sure I'm understanding, because I think I understand. So in other words, okay, the guy's a billionaire. He's acting like an idiot, but since he's a billionaire, people give him a pass. Is that what you're saying?
But he's also they have this delusion about authority and arbitrary authority, and they delude themselves on what their lives are like and what they're supposed to do, and they live by different rules as other human beings. They have this delusion, and so take all that off and just put him in your life, put him in your living room, put him in your, you know, he runs a pizza shop or whatever it is, and he acts the way he does. Are you going to still make excuses for him? I don't think so.
There you go. I'm going to start using that. I'm
Go
going
ahead.
to start saying that. Just take some zero. That's perfect, man. All the best things I say, I steal from somebody else.
Yeah.
You know,
Inspired by.
One time I was doing it. That's right. Inspired.
That's
One time I was doing an interview like 4 or 5 years ago. I've told this story quite a few times. Because I've read so many books on pandemic and famine, right? A lot. Like many, many dozens, right? And I mean like probably 7 dozen. It took many years, right?
God.
It's a lot. It took, by the time this pandemic broke out, I had already read so many. Anyway, it's very helpful because when you're studying war, you need to study pandemic and famine because those go with war. So anyway, what I was, you know, because it's a triangle, right? And so pandemic, famine, and war go together. It's like a triangle. You'll always get if you get a big war or a big pandemic or a big famine, you'll get the other two, right? And so a big one, not some little pandemic or something. But anyway, what I was getting to is I I said that on an interview. I said these things always go together. I even made a name for it, PAMFA pandemic, famine, war, right? And this one of my readers called in. She goes, you always talk about that like you invented it or made it up. And I said, I did, proudly. And she said, no, it's in the Bible. The 4 horsemen. I'm like, yikes. You're right. Well, if you're going to plagiarize, go big.
Yeah, plagiarize if you're going to steal from the best, man.
Steal from the Bible.
Yeah.
I mean, and I didn't realize, actually, that's probably where I originally got it from, but didn't remember that's where I got it from. Because I can see the patterns, though. Because when you read enough and you study war enough, the patterns are quite clear. Like, it is in the Bible. And then in my own studies of war, which have been decades long, you can see it's a clear pattern. Pandemic, famine, and war definitely go together. Mm-hmm. And it is in the Bible, which is I think the Bible is actually something like a survival manual, actually. That's what I look at it, as a survival manual, because one of the thing, I think one of the proof in the pudding there is that the people that read it tend to survive more than those who don't. Yeah. So, that's probably why it's still so many copies of it out there, because you're probably more likely to survive if you read it than if you don't. Because there's a lot of like common sense skills in there, like the 10 Commandments. Don't do these things that'll actually get you killed. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Steal from your neighbor, go for your neighbor's wife. Okay, you're not going to survive. You keep that up, right?
I got 2 more questions for you, and I'm going to switch it up real quick. I just want to hear the story. So you took a photo. You're a war photographer. You took a photo that was Time's photo of the year, right? If I understand that. And then that degenerate, spineless slob, insult to filmmaking, Michael Morse, put it in his film without giving you credit, and you sued him. Can you talk about this?
I forgot about that. Did he put it in a film? I think he did, didn't he?
I thought he put it in.
There were so many people that did that.
What was the one he did?
Sue him.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
There were a lot of people that stole that photo. It's okay. It was a
fair use, baby.
Suicide car bomb. Yeah, that's what they kept saying, fair use. And I made a lot of money off people thinking they could do that, actually.
Okay.
Because, I fought many legal battles, but I never had to sue anybody. For instance, I bankrupted one magazine that stole it, called Shock Magazine. And they were a magazine that was their inaugural issue, and they said they put $25 million into the inaugural issue. That was a magazine from Hachette Filipacci Media, which is the biggest magazine conglomerate in the world. They got 250 titles like Elle and boating and flying and all that stuff. So anyway, they put the same photo on their cover, and they said, that I was their cover photographer. And people were messaging me. They were like, "Why did you give that photo to the anti-American French magazine?" I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Then I saw it and I was like, wow. And they made it look like I was their cover photographer. Then they used some more of my photos in their spread. And anyway, long story short, they actually threatened me to sue me for defamation. And if I said again that, because I said publicly they stole my work, right? And they threatened to sue me for defamation. Anyway, I went total jihad on them, and I bankrupted the magazine. So you can find that online. You can web search my name, Shock Magazine Bankrupt. And the mechanisms of how I did that were, it was fun fighting. And so, I think that they didn't think I could beat them because they're a multi-billion-dollar company. Mm-hmm. And I didn't bankrupt the whole company, but I took that magazine out. And I took it out. It was a nice little war. It was a short war. It lasted maybe, 8 months. And they were out. And so they had put a lot of money into launching that magazine. But there were a lot of people that stole my work. And I won every case, or actually everybody settled, including the U.S. Army, ABC, long list.
Wow.
Most of the people that used it, like, churches would use it and stuff, and people would say, "You're going to sue them?" I'm like, no, it's a church, man. Let them use it. Because they're using it for there was this Islamic organization using it for peaceful purposes. They're like, "You're going to go after the Muslims?" I'm like, no, they're using it for peaceful purposes. They're not even making money off of it. I'm not going after anybody that's using it for peaceful purposes and not making a profit off of it or anything like that. No, just have it. Please use it, And but for the ones like Shock Magazine that are misusing it and anti-American or just profiting off of it, they're used to pushing photographers around, but I enjoy a good fight, and so like my lawyer, most people, they hire lawyers and they're like, oh, I got this great lawyer and I'm paying him all this money, and I'm like, listen, you're the lawyer, I'm the fighter, okay? You work for me, you take my lead, right? And I'm going in, right? So my lawyer, I don't wait for him to do all the stuff, and all the paperwork and all that jazz. The way I went after Shock Magazine is I launched a campaign to get it. I mean, first of all, I told him to write registered letters to all their in-house attorneys of all the people carrying that magazine. Walden Books, Books A Million, all those guys, Barnes & Noble. I was like, please tell them that, that this company has willfully infringed upon my work. And therefore you are innocently infringing right now by carrying it. And we knew about 11,000 or so of their distributors and retailers and wholesalers. We had the list. That was how many outlets there were. There were fewer actually, offices. There were, like Walden Books or whatever would be one, but they have many stores, right? So we just, I said, listen, just do what I tell you to do. Write a letter. Say these things and do your lawyer magic, but send it, fax it, FedEx it, and call them and tell every one of them, if you take the magazine off your shelves, we won't name you in a lawsuit, right? Otherwise, because now that you've been notified, you're innocent you're just innocently infringing right now. That's stolen material, right? But if you leave it on the shelves, that's going to be willful infringement at a minimum, or even felonious infringement, right? You got 3 levels of infringement, right? Mm-hmm. And so they all took it out, and you could see Shock Magazine was shocked, because that was just part of the war. So then I had people going against their other magazines and whatnot, and we made a juicy settlement, right? And so this was a huge conglomerate that thought, all these photographers out there, they're used to getting pushed around. They don't know how to fight. They're afraid of these big people. Like the HFM, Chet Philipacci, they're like, we'll never carry your work again. I'm like, I don't care. I don't even like you. So you're the biggest magazine conglomerate in the world. I don't care. I live in combat. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. When I get off this phone call, I'm going into a firefight. Fuck you. Sorry for my language, but that's how, that's serious, right? That's the world I was living in, was actual real combat, right? Years of it. Mm-hmm. So when it came down to like, you're going to intimidate me by not carrying my work, I don't care, right? And so I'm not just saying that. That's straight up, I'm coming to bankrupt your magazine, right? And I did, right? And so then, as I continued to fight, then they became interested in a settlement, and we did it, right? And I did that with a lot of different people. When we would fight, then we got to the point, once we had the credibility, once the credibility was there, my attorney would just call him up and say, well, you've infringed upon my client's work, and why don't you do a web search of my client's name and copyright infringement, and then call me on Monday with it, and we'll talk about a settlement, right? Yeah. Because they know they're going to get a fight, and they know it's going to be a good fight. It's not going to be, we're going to trade paperwork back and forth and all this stuff. No, it's going to be like straight up, you're going to lose some money on this, right? So you can either settle it right now and be done with it, or it's going to get juicy, right? But you have to get that credibility first. And when I went after the U.S. Army and won, and when I went after ABC and CBS and I don't know who, it was a long list, man. Every single one of them, check, 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 check. The first few, until I learned how to fight the fights really well, that was a little bit more difficult. But then after I learned how to fight it, then it got to be like, man, I hope somebody will infringe again this week. You know what I mean?
So you don't remember Michael Moore? You don't remember Mike fighting Michael Moore? Or you don't
I do remember Michael Moore now. But you got to remember there were so many fights.
Yeah.
And Michael Moore might be big on somebody's scale, but me, I'm dealing with like the U.S. Army and
fair
stuff
enough.
like that.
Fair
you know
enough,
what I mean?
Fair enough.
I mean, Michael Moore is like, okay, that dude.
Yeah.
Right? But I do remember something with him. What did he do?
He did a movie. It was called it was the one he did on the war. I don't remember which one it was.
I do remember he did something. That you reminded me of it.
It's not a movie.
I'm sorry for that language, but that really is how I would talk with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't care.
They're used to pushing people around, and that's the thing. That's what I find. That's why I try to tell people, like all these big people that are pushing you around, they depend on their ability to just like chump you down, right?
Right.
And that was one of the things I found in fighting. One of the things I found in fighting the big people like Hachette Philippachi or the Army is when you come in, you're this little pipsqueak, and they're like, well, Hachette Philippachi, their responses were completely arrogant, right? And I'm like, oh, we're going to beat these dudes so bad. I mean, and my lawyer, I was on this interview, I think it was, I don't know, it was some Hugh Hewitt show or something like that. And I said, you know, Hachette Philippachi, you know, stole my work. And, you know, I was just like, you know, and their in-house attorney, that was a live interview. Their in-house attorney, her name was Catherine Flickinger. She called my attorney immediately. Like, it was like minutes, man. I hung up. The interview was over. I was back from Iraq or something for a short time. And he calls me up. My attorney calls me up. He's like, whoa, you know, Catherine Flickinger just called me up because by this point I knew her name because we were, you know, in a proper fight with him. And he said, and she said, you know, if you say again that they stole your work, they may sue you for defamation. I said, really? A French company just said that, huh? And he's like, I know what you're thinking. I know. Don't do it. That's like I said, this is perfect. This is a myth. This is David against the giant, right? So I went right back on, and I said, you're not going to believe this. You could probably find this interview online somewhere, right? You could probably find these. It's probably in Wayback Machine or something. I said something like, you know, Hachette, their in-house attorney, you know, just called up and threatened to sue me for defamation for saying that they stole my work. So they just this is a multi-billion-dollar company. They can crush me like a gnat. They just threatened to sue me for defamation. My attorney warned me not to say that they stole my work after they stole my work. They stole my work, and now they're threatening to sue me for defamation for stealing my work. Are you watching this, Catherine? Right? And so, you know, I was like, let's get it on, boy. If you win, what are you going to get? If I win, it's a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, it's like, you know, when Rocky's fighting Apollo Creed, and at some point Apollo Creed's like, this chump thinks it's a real fight, right? Here's the thing. When you're fighting big people, and this is very important, remember what I'm saying. When you're fighting big people and you're the pipsqueak, in every case I've ever been in, they make massive errors in the first opening moves. Massive. If you were playing chess, they're like, you know, if it's a chessboard, they're like, oh, this guy doesn't know how to play chess. And they just move a piece out there. And you're like, and then you move a piece. And then they just move a piece because they're paying attention to something else. I don't know, going to coffee with all the other bigwigs, and you move another piece. And then the next thing you move another. They just randomly, they don't even consider what you just did. They just think they're going to beat you. And before you know, like, I'll take that queen. You know, they're like, oh, that's when they realize it's serious, right? Like, for instance, their North American president, his name was Jack Klieger of their North American operations. He did this conference up in New York, right? I remember this now. So he gets on this conference, and he's telling these people. So he's the president of North American operations for Hachette Philippachi Media, right? He's the one that was in charge of launching that Shock magazine. So he's the dude that did it. So he gets up in front of all these magazine CEOs and all these buying agents and all this stuff, and he actually says, Michael Yon is just doing this for publicity. Please continue to carry this magazine, basically, is what he said. You know, just continue to keep it on your shelves. And I'm like, whoa, that was perfect. First of all, that was defamation, saying I'm just doing it for that. I'm like, so, okay, that's nice. We'll add that to the fight. And secondly, he just encouraged them to do felony copyright infringement. Because, you know, there's 3 levels of copyright infringement. There's innocent. There's what's the middle one? I said I'm getting tired. It's like 2 a.m.
Oh, sorry. It was innocent, then it was willful, and then felonious.
That's right. And willful, and then felonious, right? So innocent is like, I sell you something and you don't realize that it was stolen, right? So like some apples or something. I sell you some apples, and then you sell the apples, and you know you didn't know they were stolen, so you're not a criminal, but you would still have to pay the owner of the apples the profit that you made.
Right.
So not a big deal. It's not a felony or anything, but you need to pay him that money, and those are his apples. It was your fault for not, checking who you bought it from, but not a big deal. Slap on the wrist. All right. And I mean, you don't need to go to jail for that. But then there's willful, Willful is like you knew you shouldn't have been selling that stuff, but you did it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But felonious is like you straight up stole it. Like you worked for the software company that makes the video game, and you had an advanced copy of it, and you sold it. You're going to prison, right? You know what I mean? I mean that's willful. That's felonious. So that's felony copyright infringement, right? So when Jack Klieger got up and he told all those people continued to sell that when he knew he had no right to it, that was the actual. That was conspiracy to commit. That's a felony, right? And he's admitting it to my attorney and me. We were somehow he and I both noticed it at the same time because we were tracking that guy. So he noticed it and I noticed it. We're like calling it, and he goes, "Did you see what Jack Klieger said?" I think I was calling him first or whatever. And I'm like, "Yeah, man, this is great. Now we can get the FBI involved, right?" I mean, this anyway. What I'm getting to is rewinding. They were making those very simple errors that were big. I mean, when he got in front of all those CEOs and buyers and all that stuff and said that I'm just doing it for publicity, which was defamation, by the way, which would be a whole different line. And thank you for that, giving me a queen to play with. And you know what I mean? And then he's telling everybody to keep doing it. I'm like, dude, I just took the queen off the board, and you just gave me another queen, right? Defamation. And seriously, if anybody continues to carry those things, we're gonna go after all of them for felony defamation, for felony copyright infringement, right? Every single one of them took them off their shelves. Rite Aid, the whole works, like 11,000. Catherine Flickinger called up my attorney, and she's like, he said something like, she was screaming, actually, "Your client is costing my client millions of dollars." That's how stupid they are. She actually gave him feedback. Just imagine, your artillery is landing in the middle of our base. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, I mean, seriously, that's how stupid they are. I mean, what I'm getting to is when you're fighting these big people, until they realize once they realize they're in a big fight, now they might beat you down, right? You know what I'm saying? But so if you play your game very smart in the beginning, you'll see that they'll make strategic errors, which you can exploit later. And that happened in every single case, whether it was with the Army or whoever.
Right. They're big and sloppy in the beginning because they don't think anything of you. They have no respect for you yet. You can get some moves in.
Big and sloppy, and by the time they respect you, you already took their queen off the board or whatever. Now you've got the initiative. Now you've got some initiative.
Well, that's why I gave away Barnum World, because I don't recommend doing that kind of project, but it was more of a public service because I knew I was going to use B-roll. And so I didn't want to sell it with other people's work in it. You know what I mean? So we just put it up for free because I knew I was going to use it, and I needed fair use is when you're not selling it. You know what I mean? I mean, there are cases where documentaries will use people's content, and there's a certain way you can do it. You can still sell the documentary. I didn't want to get into all that.
So many people stole my work and said it's fair use, and I'm like, okay, you're going to have fun with that. You're going to pay. Right?
Yeah.
You know, you can scream all the fair use.
Yeah,
you
that's
want,
the other
and
thing.
You're going to before this is over, you're going to write a check. So you might as well just get to that point really quickly. And you know what I mean?
It's tough to call fair use if you're making a bunch of money on it. It's not really fair use. It's not fair to the guy who made the stuff that's not making the money off. You're making off of his content. Yeah. And and the problem is the reverse of that is Jones Plantation, where that's not fair use. We created a fiction film out of whole cloth, which is at least 100 times harder than a documentary, maybe more. And that's for sale. And so you don't have the right to take my work that I worked, 3 years on, blood, sweat, and tears, and go and throw it up on your freaking BitChute channel. Sorry, I'm selling that. I'll decide what it's worth. Which burns me up.
You can use parts of it as, for
clip it,
public discussion, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you can clip it, but don't be an idiot and give away the film. I mean, I had
take the whole movie.
No, hell no.
The whole movie.
No, that's a whole different situation. I don't want to get into the whole documentary versus fiction thing, but creating a reality out of thin air fiction is extremely difficult.
Here's the thing: a lot of people don't. Intellectual property is one of the most misunderstood, areas of law. You can ask your IP attorneys. I've done so much IP stuff. At the end of the day, everything that you like. When I just wrote these notes, I don't need to register that with the copyright. This is copyrighted. literally, when I just wrote these notes, that's literally copyrighted. That's my copyrighted material. The notes that you wrote while we're talking is your copyrighted material. That's important to keep that in mind, right? And so, you don't have to register it. Now, you'll get more protections if you register your photos or whatever, but you don't have to. The moment you click that shutter on your camera, that's copyrighted in the United States, right? And so you don't have to. It's helpful to register it. Again, it can help you with later if you get into any litigation or whatever. But it's not necessarily. It's still copyrighted, and you got to keep that in mind. So when people just throw these things out like fair use, they don't know what they're talking about. You know how many people threw the fair use grenade out, and I ended up just taking their money. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, Mr.
You picked it up, threw it back at them.
Yeah, they're always like trying to lecture you on the law. I'm just like, be quiet. You're going to end up writing a check, so you might as well just get on. Okay, bye. Next. Take care of him, lawyer, right? So on the little stuff, I just let the lawyer go do it. But on the big ones, I would lead those fights. Like HFM, I led that one, right? That was like, I'm taking charge because this is not going to be just a paperwork fight. It's going to be a PR fight and that sort of thing. But again, they weren't difficult to beat because they made so many massive errors in those opening moves that were easy to exploit for the rest of the fight.
But how dare they take your shit and put it in their magazine and try to sell it? Your ass is on the ground risking your life. You're literally in a war zone. You catch this beautiful picture that you were there. You did it. It's a gorgeous picture. And where do these people get off? They should have called you beforehand and say, how much do you want for this? They probably would have paid you a lot less. You would have been, they called you and said, man, you're an amazing photographer. This is an amazing photo. We're starting this magazine. We're a startup. You know, how much could we pay you to use this in our magazine and give you the front page and all the credit in the world? You would have been way more amenable to deal with, I imagine, than just throwing it up there.
It would have been a lot less.
Yeah, that's right.
It would have been a lot less.
That's right.
Actually, a lot of times I didn't let people use that photo in many cases, depending on how they were going to use it.
Right.
And in that case, I probably would not have actually let them use it.
Okay.
When I saw the nature of that magazine.
Fair enough.
But still, that was my prerogative. It's my
point still stands though. Point
property.
still stands. I mean, at least they had some
the
integrity
point
in
still
this.
stands. Yeah, the point still stands. And also, it bankrupted their magazine.
Yeah.
Because once we got it taken off of all those shelves, right? Once we got it, see, they were in a perfect position to do this. First of all, psychologically, I was in a great position that I didn't care. I wasn't afraid of them.
Right.
And I wanted to fight them, right? I was like, let's go. You know what I mean? And I was like, ding, ding, let's go, and fight's on, and the next thing was, the important thing was I was not afraid of them. That's very important. And the next thing was they just made so many errors. The fight wasn't that difficult. But so one of the things was they were so exposed. I'm like, so I understood quite a bit about copyright fighting because I'd been in so many. So I know a little bit about copyright law because I fought so many fights, right? I would fight them side by side with my lawyer in the beginning, so I got a lot of schooling on it. And so and so I realized, well, they're very exposed. HFM's very exposed because all of these magazines and all these people, they're not used to somebody going after all the distributors because they're all doing innocent infringement, right? So what they all tried to say was, no, you need to take it up with HFM. We're like, well, we'll be taking it up with you, actually, because you're the one that's been notified now. As soon as we notified you and you still sell it, at a bare minimum, you're doing willful infringement. At a bare minimum. It's actually almost certainly felonious infringement at that point, right? Once we've notified you that it's illegal for you to sell that, and you're still selling it for a profit, we could probably put whoever's doing it in jail, right? I mean, we could actually take it down to the local magazine shop level, the shop that's on, 2nd and Folsom Street. You know what I mean? We can take it down to that, right? I mean, if you really wanted to get nitty gritty and atomic about it, but what we did was we took it to the distributor and wholesaler and retailer level and went after every single one of them, and they all just like, because think about it from their perspective. Let's say you're a big retailer and you've got a couple thousand outlets or stores. So this magazine is going to be like 0.0001 of your profit, right?
There's no risk reward. Why even take the risk? There's no reward.
You're going to be like, what? Is this a real fight? You're going to like, Yeah, well, I think it is. Okay, take it off, right? And that was our intent. We wanted them to just stop carrying it, right? And that gave us credibility with HFM. It gave us a lot of credibility because we were also getting other people were canceling their subscriptions to Elle and Boating and all these different magazines because they also carried 250 other titles, and I was getting a lot of interviews talking about this. And I'm like, oh yeah, and here's their other titles, which I put all their titles on my website. And there were a lot of people. I had millions of readers back then, right? So millions of readers were like, looking at this, and many of them were actually canceling their magazine subscriptions, right? And that's why Catherine Flickinger called her, my attorney and said, your client's costing my client millions of dollars because people are canceling some. So in addition to going after Shock Magazine, we shotgunned it against all of their whole thing, right? And so again, their attack surface was huge, and what was our attack surface? Tiny. Right? Mm-hmm. If you beat me to the ground and I got no money left, what's it going to do to your multi-billion-dollar bottom line? But if I beat you, I'll be talking about it 15 years later, which we're doing right now, and bragging about it, right? And so, it was good bragging rights. I haven't bragged about that in years. I need to brag about it more because, that was a great fight, and like Stanley McChrystal, when I had that big fight with him, it's a... eventually these fights are very expensive at times in time and that sort of thing. And so when it's done, and that's one of the things that the people that if they put you in a position where you have to fight, you need to make it clear to them that if I win, I will be bragging about this for years. And if you win, you're going to have bragging rights. But I would say, I'm not supposed to brag. I'm from the South. It goes against my culture and everything and all that. But I'm going to break my culture, and I'm going to brag about it for the rest of my life that I beat HFM, right? That I beat the biggest magazine conglomerate in the world, and I'm just a little photographer from Florida, right? And it worked.
Well, on that line, this will be the last thing I want to ask you before we get out of here. And I know it's late there. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. This has been a lot of fun, man. It's been amazing. What if somebody had to ask you a couple sentences, if you can? How would you describe yourself? What are you? You're a photographer. Just for people that maybe have never familiar with your work, and they want to figure out what are you. I probably should have asked you this in the very beginning, but I still want to know.
I don't know. I mean, Masako asked me that, all the time. My wife,
Yeah.
Because I'm just somebody. I'm a perpetual student. And a perpetual student and a defender of my people at the end of the day, right? Otherwise I would just be doing this for money, which, I would be not doing interviews and that sort of thing. I would be doing, I don't know, maybe private intelligence and analysis and that sort of thing because, the value of my analysis is actually quite high, actually. And so but I can see that if Americans don't stand up, if Japanese don't stand up, if Dutch don't stand up, our countries will fall. And we have great countries. Our ancestors made great countries. All of us watching this, everybody watching this, all of our families have been through pandemics and famines and wars. Everybody watching this, your family line came through hell to get here. And we somehow... our ancestors put us in a position where we can actually talk about this and be in safety at the moment. But we got to this point through grueling efforts, and we need to be cognizant that our turn is up to bat, right? And the only reason that these beasts are winning, because ultimately they're actually quite weak. If a sufficient number of people just say, I don't comply, like the Border Patrol people I saw up and down the U.S. border from SpaceX all the way to San Diego, if they just said, I'm not going to load the bus, I'm not going to help you invade the United States, my own country. If they just said that, right, and said, I'm not going to do it, and I'm not going to drive the bus. I'm not going to let them check into my hotel. I'm not going to do all this stuff. If a sufficient number of people did that, the pilots wouldn't fly them, that sort of thing. If a sufficient number of people would do that, they would stop. They would just stop because actually they are the man behind the curtain. There's really not that many of them, and they're not that powerful. What they depend on is willful compliance. They depend on, like HFM thought that I would just, roll over, right? But as soon as I put up a fight, I actually beat them, right? Mm-hmm. And it was, and so likewise, many people watching this are in key positions where they could actually do something. And that might include doing nothing. Doing something often is doing nothing, right? At the right moment, right? It's just like not returning a phone call or not telling somebody that a message came through. You read old books on this stuff when they're teaching people how to gum up the enemy's network. Often it's things like putting the wrong zip code on a letter and that sort of thing. And, it's just little things like that, or, not telling the boss that this other person called, what I mean? There's all kinds of little things like that you can just throw little pieces of grit into the machinery every chance you get. Just little pieces of grit, right? Lost paperwork, just things. Nothing illegal, just not being helpful, right? You know what I mean?
Hey, maybe illegal. Illegal. Who's making the law? The beast is making the laws. Some of the laws are not moral. Just throwing that out there. But be careful.
The beast can make the beast can make a rule that you're not allowed to think bad thoughts, right?
Right. Well, they're doing that.
You're not allowed to say. The beast can make a rule that you're not allowed to say the word is, and if you say the word is and it gets picked up through the AI, then you could go to jail for saying the word is. You know what I mean?
Or be debanked.
And then they start putting people in. Then they start putting people in jail for saying the word is, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if everybody says, I don't comply with that, and I'm not going to go to jail for it, and they don't willingly go to jail for it, they would have to, not do that. But they could do that. They could actually literally go, anybody that says the word, is, will go to jail, right? Mm-hmm. And people are, that's ridiculous. Is it ridiculous? They just pushed death jabs across the world and killed millions of people, and they're dying as we speak. As we speak, people are dying from that, right? And they're still rolling out more jabs. Is that ridiculous? It sure is, but they did it, and they're doing it, and they're stealing our look at the gold prices and whatnot just going through the roof because of the inflation, right? There's printing money like insane, right? And inflating away all of we're going to end up in hyperinflation, end up with a digital money. They're going to and then they're going to control everything, right?
They're not just with inflation, they're stealing your life energy. They're not just stealing your ability to buy things, which they are doing, but they're stealing your life energy. The time you put your life and your skills and your consciousness into something to create something that you get value for, which in this case is dollars. They're stealing that from you.
Right, they are, which means you're a slave.
That's right.
Means you're a slave.
We are slaves.
Remember the civilized tribes. The civilized tribes, the 5 civilized tribes. What were those? Right, the 5 civilized tribes. They say were the tribes that adopted, Christianity, but it was really the tribes that agreed to pay taxes. Mm-hmm. I mean, civilized meant you agreed to be a tax slave. That's the bottom line.
Right.
Ultimately.
Well, slavery never ended. Now we're all slaves. Slavery never ended. Now we're all slaves, and we all live on Jones Plantation.
The Jones Plantation.
That's right. That's right.
Straight up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the Jones Plantation. Hardcore. I mean, when I was watching the Jones Plantation, you got to keep in mind with the things that I've studied for many years. I'm like, this is right out of the books. I mean, the 5 civilized tribes in the 11th census. That's the Jones Plantation. Mm-hmm. They were free, man. They were free Indians running around doing Indian stuff since whenever that started, way back when, nobody knows. And then we showed up. The next thing you know, we're like, we'll give you your land back if you can get yourself in this book that we made up, right? We'll give you, you pay taxes and all this stuff. The next thing you know, they're like, living on reservations, Trail of Tears. We moved them out to worthless Oklahoma. And then the next thing you know, Oklahoma found oil. Uh-oh. Yeah. Made a mistake there. You know what I mean? All these things, we kept moving them around. Remember, when you move somebody off of their land, their ancestral land, it makes them weaker. And that's a common brainwashing technique and a common,
uprooting people, way to you can't comply your way to freedom. You can't lose your way to freedom.
You never ask for freedom. You don't ask for freedom.
Right.
You take it. Freedom is something you take. You physically take freedom. You don't ask. If you're asking for freedom, you're a slave already. Right? I'm begging you for freedom. It's like
right.
You're not going to get it. You're a slave.
Well, all right. Well, where could people find you? Obviously, your Substack.
Substack. I'm on X pretty often, but
Okay.
Substack is the best place, right? And that's Substack. Yeah, that's the best place.
I know
Please
you.
subscribe on there because then because some of the stuff I do behind the paywall.
Yeah, it's awesome. You've been writing for years and years. You're a great writer. Dude, you're, of course, man. And we don't swear, I don't care about swearing in here, but man, you're a bad motherfucker. I'm really glad I met you. Like I said, somebody told me that you looked at the film. I finally took a deep dive and I started listening to your interviews. I'm like, this dude is a bad motherfucker. He's been around. You're one of a kind, dude. I'm really glad I met you. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. We got to figure out a way to get together. I definitely want you on set for whenever you want, as much as you want. I'll throw you a bit part or something if you want next film. But we got to fight
great.
it. Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Let's go cannibal hunting together. We'll go cannibal hunting together.
Oh, I'll go cannibal hunting with you. I swear. Just fight.
Man.
Let's fight
That's
something.
epic.
Let's find a reason to hang out. All right.
Okay. All right, brother.
All right,
Have a good night. Well,
yeah.
it's 2 a.m. here, so
That's even later, I think. There. All right. Thank you so much, man. It's good talking with you.
good night.
Peace.
Bye.
Okay, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the show. You can follow me on Twitter if you want at Tregsman with 2 G's and an S, or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Drew Media TV. We also have a Rumble channel, Drew Media, if you prefer there. I know a lot of people don't like YouTube. Also, if you're listening to the podcast, like on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever, if it's not too much of a pain and you like the show, give it 5 stars so we can get some help from the algorithm. Otherwise, all the other links to our social media will be in the show notes, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.